John Ryan deserves a huge standing ovation because you do not see politicians who are willing to risked and have lost their political standing for being in the right side of history. When I hear John Ryan, who is not a Jew and was the head of the caucus, pro-Israel caucus in the Labour Party, whenever I hear John Ryan, I'm reminded of voices from the past, from Lord Balfour to Lord Wingate. So I commend you, John. We love you and we thank you, and be strong. Dear friends, thank you, ADL, for your moral compass, for your leadership, for what you've been doing in the last century on behalf of human rights, civil liberties, fighting hate, and combating anti-Semitism. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Esther, and the entire team. And thank you, Ilan, for the great work you've been doing. Together with so many other institutions, you've been an outstanding leader in the last year. But if I were to stand here a year and a half ago and tell you that people who are going to synagogue in the United States will have to be escorted by police or secured by armed guards, people would look at me and say, I am joking. But we know it's reality. And I started my trip to the United States this week at Touro Synagogue in Newport, Rhode Island, where President Washington, of course, came to the synagogue and laid out the whole notion of freedom for Jews and equality for Jews in the United States, with each one dwelling under their fig tree and, of course, under their vines. And I was thinking to myself, 260 years after that declaration in this wonderful synagogue, for the first time in history of Jewry in the United States, Jews were murdered for being Jewish in synagogues this year. This means in our shift, in our times. We can't shy away and say, okay, it was a one-time event. And therefore, God forbid, the next terror attack and the next killing may be behind the corner. And we have all of us to be at alert and work together and join forces together as one unified camp in order to combat anti-Semitism. I want each of you to think, how will be the future of Judaism around the world? And we attend to it in the Jewish Agency, which I head every day. Will it be that Jews will have to go to synagogue with guards? Will it be that Jews will be shy to put a kippah on or do any other practice of Judaism? Can we even comprehend it? And when we swore never again, we thought it's never again. And now it's coming up again. And that's why I commend this conference, because it says never is now. And indeed, never is now. So we know the facts. The facts are that there is raging anti-Semitism. All the data is there, all the reports, the new ADL report, the AJC report, the UN report, the EU report, the Cantor Center report, and many other reports. It's here. We know it. And now we have to think what we're doing about it. What are the ways to deal with it? And there are three main tiers that I believe that need to be focused. And I've made the fight against anti-Semitism a prime cause and a prime objective of the Jewish Agency for Israel, which I chair. We have dedicated a whole part of our activity to combating anti-Semitism, and I say clearly, we are here to cooperate with everybody. There's no time for being selfish, egotistical. We have to rise above it, work together. Together, all the NGOs are involved in it, the government of Israel, other governments, institutions, NGOs, international organizations, to crush this poisonous disease, as was so well depicted by my predecessors. So we are confronted with a multitude of fronts. There is raging war on campuses. a lot in the United States. I cannot even go into the details of the daily report that I've been receiving from the Jewish Agency, Israel Fellows on campuses, who are working with the Hillels and with Chabad and with Stand With Us and everybody. It is the frontier of a major battle on morality and moral compass. And in the most lucrative institutions in the United States, institutions from the Ivy League institutions and downwards, we have been witnessing horrific phenomena that are not even getting to the knowledge of the public. I'm not talking about the abundance of swastikas all over. I'm talking about hate rhetoric of the worst kind. Therefore, we are here to demand zero tolerance, no ifs and buts on any form of anti-Semitism, hating Jews, anti-Israel, and Islamic hate. So, the three main pillars of tackling the phenomena are, first of all, physical security. There's nothing we can do about it. First of all, make sure that our people are safe and that Jews are protected and safe. That requires a major effort, and I welcome the Jewish Federations of North America, which has taken on this heads-on, because after all, we have seen what happened when there were no security and no guards. In Halle, for example, 50 Jews were, God forbid, slaughtered, had it not been for the Fund for Security Assistance of the Jewish Agency, through funds we received from the Hemsley Family Trust, to fund cameras and locks at the doors, and the terrorist, and you can see it on live tweet, goes and tries to break in and couldn't come in with his guns. Otherwise, he would have gone in and slaughtered the entire community. And I was 2 weeks ago with Secretary Pompeo, Foreign Minister of Germany, Maas, and Eric Fingerhut, the President and CEO of the Jewish Federations of North America, at the site. And one needs to see it to understand that life starts with the technicalities as well. So defense is something essential. We are leading a special fund which was established following the assassination in Toulouse, where kids were murdered in school in 2012. We've already distributed assistance to 600 institutions around the world in millions of dollars, and the demand is growing ever since, exponentially. The second, of course, tier has to do with legislation, adjudication, and law enforcement. After all, we are living in countries which believe in the rule of law. And as such, we must be on alert with the relevant institutions of government all throughout the world, which means prosecutors, police, FBIs, all around the world, including Jewish security organizations, including monitoring the websites and social network, and going forward to the most important item on that tier, which is to legislate and adjudicate the definition of anti-Semitism of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which is the most correct and punctual definition of anti-Semitism that there is. This is a definition which was adopted by the European Union, which was voted on by the German Parliament, and adopted by many countries. We are all lobbying for other countries to adopt it. It, of course, adopted in the United States, but it has to go down to state prosecutors and to the coordinators, which Ilan mentioned so beautifully. And third, of course, has to do with education. And education is something big. As we are getting away and away from the memories of the Holocaust and generations shift, there is a major behavioral change in the behavioral mode of human beings in this era. And therefore, we have to make sure and find the tools and ways how to disseminate the knowledge of what it is anti-Semitism and the horrific prices of anti-Semitism. I've received an incredible letter by Prime Minister of Britain, Boris Johnson, this week. In response to my plea to all leaders of Europe in fighting anti-Semitism. I received many other responses, positive ones, from the Austrian Chancellor, from the Polish Prime Minister, but the one that was written by Boris Johnson was phenomenal, because he went into details, and he said the well-being and safety of the Jewish people is a top priority of my government, and he admits that much more needs to be done to fight anti-Semitism. And I say to all the world leaders, and I call from here, take that and copy that and implement that in all of your policies all over the world. Because it's not a problem of Jews alone. It's a problem of entire humanity. It is a challenge for the entire humanity. When we live in an era of fear and hate in the political discourse, the first ones to pay the price are Jews, but not the last ones. And therefore, it is a challenge that we all share together, and humanity must face now, immediately, with no apologies, with no ifs, and with no buts, period. And this is the call that comes out from all of us today here in this hall. I want to thank you very much for being here. I think this is a very important conference. And I'm sure that together, not only can we overcome, but we can change the dialogue, the discourse, and we can change the educational understanding of human beings as to the horrific nature of anti-Semitism. Toda rabah to all of you, and may we go from strength to strength.